Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's How to Use ChatGPT to Work for Your Business session with Zen Business. I want to thank our expert speaker, Tomi, also from Zen Business, and we cannot thank you enough for being here today. I want to remind everyone that this is a pre-recorded session with a live chat supported by our team. Feel free to drop your questions into the chat. We will be supporting that chat throughout the conversation. Tomi, before I jump in, how did you get into ChatGPT? Tell us a little bit about your background on this and how you started using it.
Marcelo. Yeah, I think it's one of those tools that I go out there and try to find what can help make my day a little bit more efficient and see kind of what's happening in the industry in terms of technology. And this one that just kind of floated to the top. And I use a lot for my kind of day-to-day work here, the data analyst at Zen Business. I also have a little side business where I help with, and then I just find really interesting ways that our customers can use it. So yeah, it's just a great excellent tool.
Yeah, I had the same experience. I started hearing about it a couple months back, and I wanted to find practical uses for it. I didn't want it just to be this idea of AI. There's a lot of AI I haven't played with, but this one just sounded so practical. And I'm so happy that we're going to be able to bring this to the Zen Business community. So let's start with the basics, Tomi. What is AI language? What's all this jargon that we see on this paper here?
Yeah, so it sounds pretty complex when you talk about an AI language model. You hear about machine learning, and really, if you take a step back and you look at it, it's a basic chat program. We use Google to go and search and try to get answers. Well, this is a tool that you use that's kind of an open chat and dialogue that you have that kind of just is something you can do a lot of research, and you can jump in and ask questions that maybe wouldn't necessarily give you one answer like Google. Google gives you a long list of websites, but this one has this dialogue that creates it, and it's very kind of simple to use and a nice tool to just jump into.
So would you say, Tomi, that that's the biggest difference, is that AI or artificial intelligence for ChatGPT opened up the dialogue versus it being what I feel like was more of a push, right? We text something and then we wait for that push to come back to us, and it's a flat response. Like when you do a Google search, you get back these responses and then it's up to you to go dig through it. Is that the biggest change here that you see?
Yeah, it's taken kind of, we don't know exactly what data, but they provided all different types of data since before September 2021, and it's pulled all this data together to give you the most relevant answer at the time. Instead of giving you tons of different options, it really narrows it down. Based on all the data that we have, based on your question, this is what we think is the best result, and it's really effective.
That's great. So I just want to ask everyone, have you started using ChatGPT for your business? I see in the chat some folks saying, oh, I'm using it for my kids' homework and I'm using it for other things. And the key takeaway today is we're going to show a model that actually helps small business owners effectively use it to improve their language, their business language, what's on their website, how they improve their content plan, and how they're actually executing around that plan. Let's talk for a second, Tomi, about the different levels of ChatGPT. We mentioned earlier that we are going to be using the free version, but it's not just a ask a question and get back, right? There's other uses of the technology that we see from an operations, customer success, and then analytics and business intelligence. What have you seen as examples of great uses for those more advanced features here in the green and in the white?
Yeah, I think when you look at this, you have this most basic where it's an individual with that wants to save time and doesn't have a lot of resources, and that's kind of the blue area. In the green area, we start using it maybe with one developer or someone who can help with the coding and connect to their API, and you can start getting more advanced kind of automated answers instead of going into the actual interface and you typing it. Maybe you have a developer go in and program all the different questions you may have. And then on the more advanced level, you can have teams creating entire products around the use of the kind of foundational model of ChatGPT. And it becomes really complex with lots of developers, lots of budget, and it's a more kind of enterprise version of how to use the model at scale. But, for the everyday user, it's really, just using the interface that we have for free, and there's lots of uses for that.
Agreed. I think that research piece is the biggest time saver for small business owners. So today, we're going to focus on these two components, market research and content creation. I am not a woman of two little words. I struggle with overwriting and over communicating. And one of the things I've really gotten out of the use of ChatGPT is dumping a bunch of information in and literally saying, how can I make this better? So we'll be using some of those examples today, but we want to remind everyone, as we said in that previous slide, there are more advanced features that ChatGPT or AI is starting to support for customer support, like chats, employee training, and strategic planning that small business owners can advance through as they understand or grow their business and have more technology resources at hand. So shall we jump into the good stuff here, Tommy?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so let's start with market research. Let me remind everyone that as a background, there is a basis for the thinking you need to do for your business, which is around your target market. Fancy marketing speak, you should define your audience personas and understand what their needs are so that as you're creating product or as you're creating the marketing plan, you know who those personas are, who those people are, and how you should be speaking to them. Now, a lot of small business owners are not marketers. They are bakers. They are restaurant owners. They have small businesses with an expertise that may not include marketing. So creating personas may not come naturally to you. That's the first use case that we really want you to focus on so that you understand why they're important. We're not here to tell you what a buyer persona is. Here is information about it and a link to the Zen Business blog where you can learn more. We shared that in the link in the chat with you. So I'm going to stop sharing and let you take over so that we can show the first example of how you can use ChatGPT to create these audiences or these audience definitions.
All right.
Let you drive.
Okay. Here we go. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm just going to jump into the ChatGPT interface. Once you log in, I log in with my Google credentials. You kind of get to this page. I'll just walk through a little bit of the interface so we're all kind of familiar. Typically, out of the box, it's free, and it's ChatGPT 3.5. This is what we'll be using. This is what we'll be using for the free version. There's a GPT-4 that is used. We can maybe talk about that later, but for this demonstration, we're just talking about this version. And so kind of just to start off, that first question where you're talking about buyer personas, I'm going to drop a prompt in here. And we're going to see what this gives back in terms of creating those different buyer personas. And you add a couple details about your business. I'm a small business, sell hair products focused on women over 35 with curly hair. So we'll just throw that in here, see what we get. See, it gives us 3 different versions. You can see there's some demographic information, age 40, occupation, family status, interest. This gets really detailed of each of these different kind of criteria within the buyer persona. This tells you 3 different examples and maybe ones you want to kind of focus on in terms of who you're trying to sell to.
Yeah, and I think what's really important about this to me is to understand that each business owner has proprietary knowledge that they need to use, right? It's why they started their business or something special about each of you that they then have to read through to say, you know what, ChatGPT, this is a good buyer persona for me. This is a good one. And they can actually ask it to fine tune some of them depending on the results, right? Now, Tommy, do they go into another chat to fine tune? Can you show us? Talk to us about the importance of why staying in this same conversation is so important.
Yeah, so I guess just treat this as if you're talking to another person and you're kind of engaged in that conversation. And as long as you're engaged with that individual, you keep having that chat dialogue inside of here. Once you move into a new chat, then it kind of resets and starts over kind of a new conversation. So that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to continue to have one conversation in one chat experience here.
Perfect. So as we're building on this model, we want everyone with us to learn. Again, the baseline is that buyer persona. Who are you selling to? And I want to remind everyone about the importance of thinking like these buyers. That's why personas are so important. Hey, Tomi, what if I decide after reading this that I want to add one more buyer persona of someone who is 25? I'd love to see what the change in language is if we add or change that particular ask.
Yeah, so I mean, really, it's pretty simple. You don't have to get too complex. You can say something like, let's focus on, did you say buyers under 25 or around 25
Yes.
or under 25? Let's just do that and see what happens. It'll take a minute, certainly. Three
So
buyer
it took the
persona.
same knowledge and now is applying it to a younger demographic.
Yeah, and you can see kind of reading through, it's a college student, single, fashion, trendy. Maybe more if this fits kind of who you're trying to focus on, you can look at those two and you can say, okay, yeah, maybe this fits more of who I'm targeting.
Perfect. Thank you so much for showing us that. Okay,
Yeah.
so now that we've done that piece, the next critical part that we want to talk about in this model, particularly around research and the things that we want to do is, so I've determined that these are the buyer personas. We're going to go with the next, those first three for this workshop or this webinar. What is the next step that a small business owner should take as they're thinking through their marketing plan and putting together, for example, a website? I would say, give me an about us. Can ChatGPT help them now explore ideas around how to talk about their business based on who they are selling to?
For sure, yeah. So, it's going to use some of the outputs that were up here, but really you're basically just kind of dropping in another prompt, and you speak to it as if if you wanted about us section, mention that in the description, and then add a couple different details. This is right in about us description for an online store, so that's one kind of new criteria that we added there. Sells curly hair products, organic. This one, do you want to keep it at over 35 or do you want to be?
Yeah, let's do that since that's
Okay.
the first example that we wanted to go through.
Okay, and then we went ahead and put in located in Austin, Texas. So this will be specific location-based about us section. In it, you can drop your company name in here, but this is it. This is kind of explains that it's in Austin, Texas, and talks about unique beauty products. Let me just go through and go, okay, does this kind of fit? And I would say that don't ever just take this and kind of copy it directly to your website. It's a starting point. It's a creative tool. See if this makes sense. You can kind of go back and forth in playing with the search prompts to increase if you want this.
This is a really important point that I want everyone to take away. While this is great technology, there are key things to consider that could be risks. One of them is the ownership of the content. Now, the about us is unlikely to be copied from somebody else, but this is using website information, right? That's out on the World Wide Web. And I'm probably dating myself for using certain language, so feel free to correct me. But it's going out there, it's finding information, and it's using AI to come up with the best description possible. It's not going to be perfect. One of the questions I get all the time is, do I have to do a grammar check? How do I know if this is accurate or not? Because right now we're using very general questions, but what if we're doing, I don't know, medical research or something that is more critical to accuracy? So we want to remind everyone that it's a great research tool, but again, you are the knowledge core, and you have to make sure that what it's feeding you is not only accurate, but I highly recommend that you be very careful with things like duplicate content when it comes to SEO, which of course, I'm going to now jump into the SEO component of using ChatGPT for some of these important website search engine optimization tactics that are so important. What is SEO? Again, I'm going to go back quickly to the presentation and remind everyone that, tell me if I may just jump back in and share quickly. So we want to remind everyone that there are some key elements to every single website. Zen Business's website tool has a great SEO component where you can go in and update the metadata for your website. I'm not going to go into the details. Here is the link that we shared so that you understand what those components are. But Google or the search engines will understand whether the messaging on your website is clear, whether it's actually delivering on the topics that you intended for your audience, and how valuable those are. The more valuable the content, the more likely you are going to show up in search results. Those search results are based on metadata, keywords, how much content you publish, and of course, how many people visit your site, click around, and show the search engine that they're interested in that content, right? So the reason that we're bringing this into play right now is because I personally really struggle with writing really clean, short, as I mentioned earlier, descriptions. And I tend to put it off. I tend to say, you know, I'm going to write the fun stuff and do the metadata later. I'll come back and do it. We find that 9 out of 10 times, people don't go back and write out that metadata. So now what we want to do is go through the application of ChatGPT, not only for your About Us, but how to take advantage of the thinking that AI does to include meta descriptions, to include those key components so that you're not putting off these really important parts of your marketing effort. It's annoying stuff, it's technical stuff, but it's really important so that you can stand out from your competitors when Google is indexing your site. Okay, so I wanted to give that background and make sure everybody understands why it's important. So now let's jump in and look at the About Us with a meta description and look at what that can look like across different parts of your marketing work. Shall we?
Right. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. There we go. And what we'll do is we'll kind of pick back right where we left off in this same chat. And for me, I agree, creating content for a website is difficult. I think you get writer's block a lot of times. You don't really know where to start. So this, again, is a great tool just to kind of get you started. So right here, we're saying we sell shampoo for curly hair for women over 30, top organic ingredients, and want a meta description for the website. So let's see what it gives us here. And there it is. It's pretty short and sweet. And that's kind of the point of a meta description. It's not a huge, long article. It's very tight, concise.
And the key thing to remember for everyone is if you don't give search engines, I keep saying Google, but any search engine, the meta description, it will pick one for you. So when somebody does a Google search, either for your brand or something related to what you're selling, and other companies do include their meta description, yours might be some random part of your About Us or the first couple of sentences rather than what you have selected to say. That's why that's important. And I love what I see here because it has emotional words like transformative. It has keywords like organic shampoo, nourishing shampoo, and it even has a call to action. Shop now to experience. So this is a well-written meta description and something that if I saw on Google would likely get me to click and go visit this website. Now, let's talk about the meta description for that About Us page. Can we take a look to see how it would be different?
Let's see here. So this one do we want to move on to the keywords, or we're going to?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's jump into
Yeah.
keywords and then we can play around with it a bit more if we've got time. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So reminder, SEO keywords are really important. We're not going to get into, whether or not these keywords are difficult or not. There's a lot of technical language around different types of keywords. What we will demonstrate is simply how to do some simple keyword pulls using ChatGPT, and then we'll play around with the difference between those initial keywords and maybe some long tail keywords. Okay.
Okay. So what we'll do here, and I think what we also want to do is we want to create a couple keywords for the buyer persona and how that kind of ties up with some of the other content inside of here.
Great idea.
Yeah, so I think what we can do is let's put that prompt in there and say, let's say, please use one of the following buyer persona. Okay, and then we'll go back up here, and you can do this. You can just jump back up and see if there's, let's say it's Trendy Tailor. Let's just say this is the buyer persona we want to kind of build some of those keywords off. Come down here and just drop it in here, and let's see what keywords it provides. This gives us 10 different keywords targeted specifically at Trendy Tailor. Now, I kind of was looking at this, I wonder, these are most sentences. I bet we could kind of condense it down to more targeted types of keywords. But this is a good starting point to say, okay, do any of these words stand out? Do any of these kind of keywords inside of here speak to what I would use for driving traffic to my site?
And one of the questions I get a lot, Tommy, is how do you prioritize either what persona to start with? Because small business owners have limited time. They wear so many hats. One day you're in sales, one day you're in marketing, the next day you're operations, right? So how do you prioritize? What we recommend is that you think about which of your buyer personas are going to drive more revenue, or which ones you're going after first, right? Because you cannot do everything at once. So here, Tommy picked a specific buyer persona, and now we got this result back. And I would say, if I'm the business owner for this particular topic or this particular business, I would say, I'm going to go after either the products I have the most of, right, which I would have done early on in the persona review anyway, or I'm going to go after the topics I know most because I'll be most excited about writing around those, right? So you just have to prioritize based on your time, where your revenue needs to go, or where you want to see revenue growth, and then of course where your knowledge sits. So this is great, and these are great starting points for this. So once you have the keywords, let's select one of these sets and agree that as the business owner, I'm going to focus on a particular topic. Now, what would I do?
So I think for these here, if we want to move this into more of a blog article and try to figure out how those kind of tie together, let's take another prompt and then move into creating a blog title. Do you think that's a good direction?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, let's do it.
Because now we've determined our personas, who we're going after, what the keywords are that we're going to focus on our site. And in order to get that audience, we need to create content. Blogging, of course, is one of the primary ways that you can drive traffic to your website.
Okay, so what we'll do is we're going to create both a blog headline, and we're going to do a meta description, and we're going to use these keywords here. You could be selective of specifically which ones, or narrow it down. Let's say you refine this list, but we're going to just use these here. So please use the keywords from the list below, and it's going to create that list of 10 blog titles and meta description.
We get a lot of questions around producing leads for your website. And I want to say this out loud. This is sourced from LinkedIn. Companies that blog produce an average of 67% more leads than those that don't. Blogs increase web traffic, brand awareness, and enhance customer experience. So I read that out loud while you're doing this because it's so important to understand why we are teaching you this process from the very top through to these little nitty-gritty details of taking keywords and creating blog entry ideas for your website.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, I look at this and I think it's really amazing when we read some of these titles, top curly hair products for trendy looks. We focused on trendy tailor, and you can read through these and you go, wow, this is really targeted to some of the content above and how we refined it. And this works across any industry. You know, you can take the same process and apply it to your business. And it's hard to think of titles and content. And this really is an excellent.
Particularly when you're living inside of your business all the time, it's so hard to be creative about something you know so well. And this is a great way to get that thinking started. The other thing that I love that you did, again, going back to that best practice, is you're not skipping the meta description. So I repeat, when you start a blog post, do not leave out these important parts of your website management, right? On the back end of the tool, there should be a place for SEO. This is where that goes. And now you've gotten rid of this really annoying, tedious task that you were already putting off for later. It's saving you time and it's saving you a headache for down the road. Yeah. So remember to include both the blog entry, the meta description, and now why not? Should we ask it to write us a sample blog entry?
Yeah, let's do it. This is the fun part.
Google tends to look for about 1,000 words for valuable content on a website. Again, I say use your best judgment on your audience and who you're trying to reach. If you're trying to reach a younger audience that doesn't like to read, you may want to keep those shorter and have some supplemental imagery or video content to go with it, right? So remember, your audience is what defines how you create content. But let's go with best practices. Ask it for a 1,000-word article and see what we get.
And kind of just looking through the list here and thinking, well, what article would really stand out? Let's say let's just go with the top one. Now, there's top 5 curly hair products for trendy looks. So you take this here, and we're just going to drop it down here, and let's see what it does.
Great. And while it's generating, the other thing that comes to mind, which we wanted to highlight during today's session, is I already see my social media posts coming to light. I already see those social headlines, so that as you're planning your content, this is content strategy. This is how you put together a content plan. And now these headlines can be linked to a really cool, right, text-based post for Instagram. You can talk about your expertise as a business on LinkedIn, change it up a little bit, but now you have your social media headlines that you can post and link to these blog posts. That's how all of this comes together into a really succinct strategy for content creation and content distribution. Look at this. I love the fact that it gives you, it's almost giving you the page structure, your introduction, your opening paragraph, your key points. How many key points did it come back with?
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I love about ChatGPT. When you tell it to be specific, if it's 1,000 words in 5 topics, it breaks it here into 150 words for the intro, 200 words here, and then goes through the 1 through 5, the top 5 that we had mentioned. So this is kind of spot on with a great starting point to create a blog article based on all the research we just did. Perfect.
Remember, Grammarly, make sure that you're checking your grammar either with a tool like Grammarly. We can talk about best practices around that in a minute, or even just copying and pasting it into a Google Doc, which is free, and using the grammar check and the spell check. look, I hope ChatGPT is smart enough not to mess that up for us, but take no chances. The quality of your brand is going to depend on how well you publish your content. This is fantastic. Now, what if I want to send out a newsletter, right? Part of keeping up with your existing customers and adding value is sending valuable information on an ongoing basis, both to your leads. So hopefully you're capturing those leads on your website, or your existing customers who you have already created a relationship with. I would love to see a 6-week, I think we said we would look at a 6-week schedule for our newsletter. I hate writing subject lines. Again, too many words come from me. What would that look like here?
All right, so let's start by dropping the prompt in here, and then let's kind of break it down. So here's create the newsletter, my target audience, 6-week, with subject lines, no more than 9 words and 60 characters. So I think there's some limitations and some best practices around how long you want it to be. And we're going to go through a list of the keywords. So let's scroll back up and find those keywords. Here are the keywords that we've been kind of focusing on based on Trendy Tailor. And let's just drop them in there and let's see what we got.
Great. And you can do this either with the keywords, or if you like the blog entries that ChatGPT brought you back, you can use those blog entries or that list. But what I love about what you're showing us is how specific you're being with the inputs. I have seen many business owners try using ChatGPT and providing very generic questions, and that's when you get generic results. These are specific and really helpful, therefore cutting the time that you normally have to think through all of these ideas.
Yeah, and you can see here, it gave us the 6 different weeks, gave us the criteria within, was 9 words and 60 characters. So yeah, this is spot on. And if you want to change it up and you want to change instead of the keywords, like Marcella is saying, go back up and see if there's other variations or ways that maybe they can fit the newsletters that you want to put up.
Yeah, and the important part of having a content plan like this is you're already teasing up your current or future customers into what's coming next, right? Next week, we'll be talking about the latest hair trends for stylish curly hairstyles. So you get that expectation that you're going to be hearing from me again, and we've shortcut the time that it takes to plan all of this ahead of time, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine how long it would take to do all this, within a 30-minute study.
It was definitely a lot longer in the past. So Timmy, I'm going to take over again so that we can just go through and review some of the things that we've discovered. Actually, I want to do one more thing. Sorry, I'm taking back my word. Can we do a generic search? That's the one thing I want to make sure we show the difference. So rather, you've done such an awesome job giving us these specific results. What happens if we just ask a general question about research? What's the difference between those results and what we've seen so far? Can you just show us a quick example of that?
Sure. Jump back in. And this is the window. Now, what are you thinking? What type of question do you think we should?
So, let's go back to the beginning where we were saying, I'm this type of business and I want buyer personas. Let's say that you did not attend this session and all you want to do is say something like, I'm in this type of business. How do I define my target audience? Okay.
So, and we're kind of just starting from scratch, or do you want to continue to do this?
Let's just see what it does if we just ask it, I'm in the type of business that we've been running, and I would like to know how to figure out my target market.
Okay, so I'm going to say I'm a baker in the Austin area.
Sure.
And looking to find my target audience.
Perfect.
Okay. Baker and okay, let's see what happens.
Perfect. This is exactly
Yeah.
what I was hoping to show them, right? So you didn't use words like define my personas. You didn't tell it the age or any more specifics. So in essence, it's telling you to do what we just taught you. Define your value proposition, conduct market research, right? Use social media, but it's not giving you the data. And it's really important because without the tactics that we just reviewed, this is what results you would get. And that's the big difference between this workshop and the importance in being specific and building on a query that's smart from the very beginning and just starting generic, because now you're going to have to take more time to go deeper and deeper by starting with point one from the get-go. So thank you for showing us that. I really wanted to show that difference because when I started using ChatGPT, this is what I was doing. And then we've learned that the more specific the question, the better the result. So I hope that makes sense to everybody.
Yeah, and I want to take it one step further, just because I do this a lot, and I think it was like one of the things I find a lot of value in. And whenever you start kind of generic with a target audience here, and it gives you these different steps, the one really great thing it does, we go, well, define your unique selling proposition. What does that even mean? So how do I, and I just copy it, define your unique selling proposition for a baking business. Okay, and let's see what it does. There you go. Identify your strengths, understand your target audience, research competitors, define your unique features, consistency and quality. So I just, it's kind of just continuously asking questions. You go to this next one and go, well, how do I identify your strengths in a baking business? And you just kind of keep doing that. And kind of this endless amount of content that you get through your site. And, it saves you a lot of time to, to dig in and go deep on some of this.
No, thank you for that. I think it's really important to show those differences. And what we really wanted everyone to take away today is what are the words, what are buyer personas, what are keywords, what are the words that are going to add value to your search so that you're saving time and not getting into an eternally generic loop with ChatGPT. Okay, great. So let's go review some of the key points and make sure that we've covered everything.
All right.
So we already talked about the fact that you can take your plan, whether it's your blogging plan, your newsletter plan, and apply it to social media. I do want to ask you about where you think we're going with artificial intelligence and image creation, because I've had pretty sketchy results when it comes to this, at least for any of the free or cheaper versions of AI that I've seen on images.
Yeah, so I played around with it a little bit, and I've also done some of the video. I think we're, at least right now, we're moving very fast. It changes on a weekly or monthly basis, but I kind of stay just in the text realm and not so much in the image area. I think it both will cost more money to process all the images and videos, but I think using it just for kind of that text research right now is a great place to start and be.
Yeah, Canva does have some cool stuff going on. So if you have the paid version of Canva, play with it. There's no sense in not trying it. That's my advice to everybody. However, I have found that the people stuff is not so good. When it comes to objects, it does a better job. So, I need a picture of a red flower, a hand holding a red flower is much easier for the AI to create than people images. Okay. So just to review, we talked about creating a baseline. We believe that it's really important to start with your buyer persona. Always think of your buyers first and who you're trying to attract to your business. Once you give it clear and specific inputs, you'll get better results. I think, Tommy, the exercise you just did of asking it generally about target market is a perfect example of that. And should I repeat it again? You must review and edit the results, because Google or the search engines will ding you if it finds duplicate content on your website. And then, of course, there's legal implications to taking content that may be proprietary. So be careful. It's not a perfect technology, and you want to be careful with these things as a small business owner. Tomi, what have you found is the most effective tool set? How do you combine ChatGPT with other tools so that you can get to a result with confidence that you will then post?
So honestly, I take the initial, I put my inputs into ChatGPT. A lot of times I just pull out a Google spreadsheet and I drop it in there and start kind of organizing and playing and pulling it into Google Docs and using the tool to get as much kind of content as possible and then move it into another medium, like, so I can kind of filter and search and really kind of play with those to get it right. I think it's hard if you're just kind of living within the tool. You got to pull it out and then you got to start using it in other areas. So that's kind of my process.
Yeah, I definitely am using, and I want you to talk for a second about the paid version, because I don't have the paid version yet. So I'd love to hear the differences that you found, but I'm using the free version. I not only use it to research the way we've just demonstrated, but I also use it to get improved ideas on something I did come up with. So if I write a social media post, I may enter the tone of voice that I want. I may enter and ask it to give me options to see if it just uses better words than what I came up with. And then I definitely do what you said, which is copy and paste it into Grammarly. I do have paid Grammarly, which helps me look at not only grammar with tone of voice, but it does also look for duplicate content. For those of you that are using ChatGPT for homework, it's certainly something to be careful with your kids. I've heard a lot of horror stories about that. So I would love to hear from everybody that joined us today. How will you start using ChatGPT to drive some efficiencies for your business? And please share with us on social media to let us know what the biggest takeaway was from today's session around the use of ChatGPT. We will be sending examples of the queries and the results so that you have access to Tomi's amazing work. And in the future, as your business advances, remember to start looking at the enhanced functionality that ChatGPT will continue to provide. So my parting question to you, sir, is free versus paid. What's your call on this today?
Well, I think if you're looking for your biggest bang for your buck, it's going to be on the free side. The GPT-4 might be a little bit faster. It will provide different results, but there are limitations. You can only do 25 queries within 3 hours. And, I think there's that limitation of volume. And I personally, at least with the searches I do and the way I use it, I don't see a huge difference in the output. So I would lean towards the free version and continue to use that. It's not a big uplift, I think, just, to move over to 4.
Thank you. And have you used the Google version of ChatGPT yet? Have you started playing with Google's yet?
I have not. I haven't. I've kind of read articles about it, and I've heard folks kind of write about it, and I think still GPT is the one that's kind of leading the path forward, and seems like it's the best results.
Yeah, I have to say, I agree with our limited time, both working here and running our own small businesses as entrepreneurs. I focus my time on ChatGPT, but we welcome any feedback from all of you with us today if you're using other technology so that we can continue to learn and share that information with you. Tomi, thank you so much for being with us today. We look forward to having everyone join us for future sessions, and I hope to have you back as an expert very soon.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon,
Bye now.
everyone.